settle. I want the trophy, I don't want no medal. Hop in the Porsche, my foot on the pedal. They think they know me, but I never met them. Back in the game and I'm better than ever. Know that I'm running the shit, everyone know that Benzenji don't miss. I'ma keep dropping again and again and again. I'm giving them hit after hit after hit. I do not care what they think, know I'm the gold, I've been getting rich. I don't forget and I don't forgive, just leave me alone. I'm about to go switch up the flow. Used to be sitting economy, now I be sitting with no one beside of me. Graduated with a couple degrees, I still do it better than all of these rappers who thinking they poppin'. They coming for me and they gon' need a coffin. We talking about dollars, they changing the topic. I feel like I'm Elon, the way that I rock it. I used to be wondering how I could get to the money, now I got a whole lot of options. I'm turning it up like a mosh pit. They giving advice, just stop it, cause they don't know nothing about it. Gotta go vegan with all of this bread. I don't wanna party, I'm chilling instead. They letting the fame go straight to the head. I'm killing my ego, I left it for dead. Out in Miami, I'm living, I'm about to be neighbors with Diddy. I'm ready for battle, now who coming with me? I'm popping 11, now we getting litty. I'm hoping it's never gon' end. I'm doing this shit for my family and friends. I did it my way, I don't follow the trend. I don't want a key to the city, I'd rather be getting a key to the Benz. Grab an umbrella, I make it rain, no matter the weather. Been on a roll, I'm never gon' let up. I still got the scores that I gotta settle. I want the trophy, I don't want no medal. Hop in the Porsche, my foot on the pedal. They think they know me, but I never met them. Back in the game and I'm better than ever. Doubt on myself these days, thinking that I lose it all. Know that I came so close, thinking that I'm gonna fall. They say that the money really changed me, say that I'm showing off. I say that I'm still the same, but deep down I know I'm wrong. Trying to go back to the old days, when money not the topic of the convo. People always ask if I'm still paid, people never ask what's wrong though. Everybody thinking that I made it, but lately I've been trying to just hold on. All of my happiness faded, my brain been feeling like a war zone. People believing in me, but I don't believe that I got it myself. Money and numbers is all that they see, but I don't see happiness coming with wealth. Everything's smooth when you look at the surface. Wish I could see what goes on in my mind. Battling demons, they hidden inside. They keeping me paranoid every night. Like, everything ain't what it seems. Focused on the wrong things. I've been trying to hold on. I've been trying to hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on to everything I got now. Praying I don't fall down. I've been going all out. I could lose it all now. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. I've been trying to hold on. Feel like I'm losing touch with everyone that really been with me. Dad called my phone at lunch, told him that I was too busy, but really I just act that way. One day he gon' be locked in the grave. I'ma wish I could get the time back. Talk to him about all the time he gave up just to make sure I'm good now, cause life ain't never gonna be easy. He worked his way to put food down, made sure he always could feed me, and I just hang up the phone now, cause I'm too focused on the CD. I'm trying to turn my dream into real life, but that's the problem I don't realize. I'm trapped inside of my own world, forget about life and the meaning. I'm trying to get back with my old girls. My mom is who I should be seeing, cause everybody ain't always breathing, and sometimes it happens out of nowhere. I'm praying that my family don't go there, but if they do, then I'll be on my own. Everything ain't what it seems, focused on the wrong things. I've been trying to hold on, I've been trying to hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on to everything I got now. Praying I don't fall down. I've been going all out. I could lose it all now. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. I've been trying to hold on. nobody doing it better than us. Travel the world, I've been living it up. Man in the mirror, that's who I can trust. Stick to the plan and I never adjust. I seen the hate and I seen the love. Keeping it real, we calling it bluff. I just been counting up 1 milli, 2 milli, 3, but it's still not enough. Already knew what I wanted, I went and I got it. Lately I feel like I'm being too modest. I'm talking my talk, just keeping it honest. They not on my level, I can't even bother to give them my time or give them $1. They think they artists, but really they not. You know I'm writing, producing, recording, I'm doing it all. The role they got diamonds, they dancing. I'm trying to cop a new mansion. The labels be holding them ransom. Do what they told, I cannot imagine. I put myself in position and I still remember when nobody listened. Came a long way, but I'm still on a mission to be at the top. I know I'ma get it. Yeah, nobody doing it better than us. Travel the world, I've been living it up. Man in the mirror, that's who I can trust. Stick to the plan and I never adjust. I seen the hate and I seen the love. Keeping it real, we calling it bluff. I just been counting up 1 milli, 2 milli, 3, but it's still not enough. I get what I'm owed, the better the journey, the longer the road. Never been one that'll fold, standing up tall. This is the life that I chose. I had to do it the way that I wanted. I can't let nobody take credit for nothing. If you weren't there in the darkest of moments, then you won't be there when the blessings are coming. I really be living this, and I never got time to reminisce. I'ma keep it on go, that's all that I know. I don't take breaks, I'm different. I'm ready for my time, I put in that grind. I'm winning that shit like Michigan. I'm looking around and don't see nobody doing that work I'm putting in. I know, yeah, nobody doing it better than us. Travel the world, I've been living it up. Man in the mirror, that's who I can trust. Stick to the plan and I never adjust. I seen the hate and I seen the love. Keeping it real, we calling it bluff. I just been counting up 1 milli, 2 milli, 3, but it's still not enough. Drop top, pull out the foreign. I be whipping on the fast lane, engine be roaring. I don't really want no more friends, it ain't important. They be bringing drama back then, cooking the ramen. I was Benny Hart. Drop top, pull out the foreign. I be whipping on the fast lane, engine be roaring. I don't really want no more friends, it ain't important. They be bringing drama back then, cooking the ramen. I was Benny Hart. 25 with a couple comments, they be hating, they in the comments. Used to give a fuck back then, but nowadays I be steady mobbing. Shot away, I'm in a 305. I'm living life like it's do or die. In the present, I'm gifted now. I'm 30,000 feet in the sky. I used to ask for the leg room, now I lie flat like a bedroom. All invested in my next move, like Dogecoin going to the moon. I work from home, but I never zoom. Don't got a boss tell me what to do. I used to dream with my eyes open, now I'm waking up to a better view. Drop top, pull out the foreign. I be whipping on the fast lane, engine be roaring. I don't really want no more friends, it ain't important. They be bringing drama back then, cooking the ramen. I was Benny Hart. Drop top, pull out the foreign. I be whipping on the fast lane, engine be roaring. I don't really want no more friends, it ain't important. They be bringing drama back then, cooking the ramen. I was Benny Hart. This ain't luck and it's never random. I felt alone and I've been abandoned. I graduated, set another standard. I'm moving forward, never looking back, but not overnight. This is 9 years. I studied game from the pioneers. I locked myself in the studio and I made a milli off my ideas. So if you want it, better go and get it. They don't wanna work, but they want the credit. Could've done more, but they won't admit it. I want the Porsche, not a Honda Civic. Took my mind to another level. I got it all, but I never settled. Could've lived with a day job, but my gut told me I'm something special. Drop top, pull out the foreign. I be whipping on the fast lane, engine be roaring. I don't really want no more friends, it ain't important. They be bringing drama back then, cooking the ramen. I was Benny Hart. Drop top, pull out the foreign. I be whipping on the fast lane, engine be roaring. I don't really want no more friends, it ain't important. They be bringing drama back then, cooking the ramen. I was Benny Hart. Yeah, we here, 2022. Let's go. My mind been working like a mile a minute. It took a little time, but I'm back to business. I'm coming all year cause I had to finish. And the flow too sick, that's a real pandemic. Everyone dropping some mid these days. I only listen to my own shit these days. And as a lady, be looking like a real thin line between jealousy and hate these days. What's the problem? I don't ever got one. I done paid my dues and now I'm back to balling. A lot of options I got involved in. I don't make the rules, but I be shot calling. I never faking my bank inflated. My brother just called like, damn, you made it.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome. As Hector points out in chat, the third stream of the week. I told you this week was going to be lit with streams. Next week, you can probably expect the same. Hint, hint, wink, wink, no worries. I absolutely love pre-stream chat, and for those who are in LinkedIn or YouTube, you should check out kind of like the scroll here on the side of the screen, what we've been talking about here. There's a pinned message in Twitch chat, and we'll answer it here in real life, on the stream here in a little bit. But it's actually generated quite a bit of buzz over on Twitch chat. It said, how long should you stay at your employer? And there's been actually quite a few really good answers. Things like until you've maxed out your 401k, until IBM buys it, #red flags, until you realize that your cloud provider is just your basement. So if you have those nice little, that's one of those questions of like wrong answers only. But if you've got the wrong answers only version of how long you should stay at your job, feel free to drop those into chat. Good Friday morning, everybody. Happy to see you. I absolutely love our Friday morning streams. Welcome to Tea with a Hacker. I've got my traditional chai latte, homemade at home with some nice crushed up chai and a nice little homemade espresso. Good stuff. And as you can tell, the caffeine is already hit and I am wired, tired. I don't know why, but those two rhyme together. Feel like Eminem, ready to go. We got a special version of Tea with a Hacker going on this morning. We've got first part is going to be an interview, and the second part is going to be my traditional AMA, and so I'll get into that here in a little bit. First, let's hit some of the typical kind of rules and stuff like that. So first and foremost, this is, we keep chat free of any toxic behavior. What does that mean? No racist, sexist, misogynist, elitist, or otherwise toxic behavior. We have zero tolerance for that in chat. Keep chat, professional-ish. We kind of say it like that. We don't tolerate any of that toxicity here. We're here for everybody to learn and participate from our vast community that we have. We are streaming live across X, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch this morning, and so you can participate in the chats and all those respective platforms, and we highly encourage you to chat with your folks that you've got in those respective chat platforms. We do have moderators in chat. Like we always ask that you good claps to the moderators in chat. Moderators are here to keep chat free of racist, sexist, misogynist, and otherwise elitist behavior. If you do find yourself on a timeout or a ban, I highly encourage you to talk to the moderators. I don't see that. I don't have any control over that. I let my moderators handle that for me, and I'm really grateful for all of them, which is why I ask you to give them the love and the respect that they do. They do volunteer their time to assist with these streams. It's a great opportunity to remind you to, hit that exclamation point Discord and hop over into our Discord. That is the best way to get in touch with me or any of our moderators. Maz is redeeming some channel points. All right, look at it. The Twitch guys are getting all into the channel points and stuff like that we used to have going on. Love it. The other thing is like this is our Friday morning AMA stream. We do have a guest this morning. I still want you to ask all the questions. Like this is like just like we had with Jax last week, just like we have with any of our other streams. This is a fantastic opportunity for you to talk to myself or any of the guests that we have on the stream live, right? And that's very rare. And so we definitely don't have a dedicated Q&A per se. We encourage you very frequently across all the platforms to ask the questions at any point in time. And just like you kind of saw with, with a lot of the other comments that have come across, one of the moderators will grab it, post it across the bottom of the screen, whether it's for myself or whether it's for our guest here this morning. We do ask that you only ask the question once. I do promise you we have multiple moderators in chat who are seeing the questions, and then as they see those questions, they will push them up on the screen, just like what one of the moderators did just now. So with that being said, I want to take just a quick second to thank you all for tuning in this week. It's been a great week. If you missed yesterday's stream, make sure you do go check out the replay of yesterday's stream with Jax, as we talked about kind of the state of global security, from, what it's like to come into, your first executive role and your ideas and ways that you can be successful in that, all the way to something like AI, which we talked extensively about yesterday. And we kind of promoted Jax's research and development into her course on AI that's on ACI Learning. And kind of carrying over with that today, I wanted to bring in somebody that I've recently met, that I've had a really good opportunity to get to know over the last probably 60 or 90 days or so, something like that. And she's been really, really amazing. It's the way that we came about meeting each other, I'm sure will come out in the interview when I bring her on the stage. But as you know, like, I'm very cynical and skeptical when it comes to AI. And after a conversation with her, I was actually able to see that not everybody out there is really doing sleazy things with AI. There's actually some people who are really trying to make the world a different place with AI. And she's one of those people that converted me. And so I say that to say, I felt like if she could convince me, and if she could convert me, then there must be something there. We got to put her on stream. We got to let her share those opinions of the world with you all and see if she can do it as well. With that being said, I'll kind of like stop hyping her up here in a little bit, and I'll bring her onto camera a little bit. Cyber and security family across LinkedIn, Twitch, YouTube, everywhere else. Please put your hands together in chat for Richa Kaul, CEO of Compliance. Richa, thank you so very much on behalf of my community for coming and hanging out with me this morning. Oh, you're on mute. Oh no, we just did this. Chat, we've got one. We hit one. All right, we'll give her a second to go fix the mic issue and then come back. It always happens. We always get at least one. It's all good. It happens. All right, let's see if she's back.
I am back.
All
Can
right,
you hear me
we got
now?
you.
Okay. No idea why that happened. So sorry about that. I was saying I've got my tea and I'm ready to go.
You got your tea. What are you drinking? We do have a question in chat about tea, so this is probably a pretty good opportunity to kind of push that question up on screen. What kind of tea are you drinking?
I am a classic. I drink English breakfast tea every morning.
Yeah.
I can't get on the chai tea latte spin that's going on right now.
Really? I've always loved chai. Like, I've got like different flavors of chai at the house. I've got like it's like a midnight tiger chai that's got like some really weird herbs in it. It's pretty good.
Well, I'm a what's the word? I'm a traditionalist when it comes to my tea.
Good. All right. Well, let me brag about you really quick, because I always brag about my guests. You have got an amazing history, right? You were, former consultant at McKinsey. For those who don't know what McKinsey is, like, I talk about the big four being EY, Deloitte & Touche, PwC, and KPMG. McKinsey and some of those other consulting companies, they tend to think that they kind of transcend the big four, and they're kind of like above the big four. And so I always give the McKinsey consultants a little crap for thinking that they're better than the rest of us in the big four space. But McKinsey's a big deal. McKinsey's got a lot of high profile consultants, and so she spent some time there with McKinsey. So hats off to you for doing the due diligence with the consulting world. You were a managing director for Virginia Economic Development. You've been a head of strategy and a chief strategy officer for Contract Pod. And now you're CEO and co-founder of a GRC company. And if I think the first thing that kind of comes to mind is that's a short list of experience.
Short list of experience. That's what definitely some other people would think as well, Neil. And you're right. But I think you got to really just go for what you want. I really, really believe that.
Go ahead.
And so I think that's been kind of my mantra my whole career.
Yeah. You were obviously McKinsey, and then you escalated quickly to managing director, and then you had a seed next to your name, and now you're a co-founder and a CEO. I have to ask, you seem pretty young in that world. You seem to have, kind of grown pretty rapidly over the course of your career. I imagine you've had some challenging personality types that you had to interact with, probably being younger than your peers, probably being younger than some of your senior leaders that you've had. How have you navigated that challenge?
It's funny because obviously I'm female, I'm minority, but I don't think about those things as much as I often think about my age.
Mm.
And actually, my age has been one of the most difficult things to almost handle throughout my career. One of the funniest stories I will tell you is when I was managing director at Virginia Economic Development Partnership, uh, I um, I had my average age on my team was about 58,
Mm.
60, and I was a ripe 24 years old. And on my first day in the office overseeing this team, I walk into the office after lunch, and one of my team members had put a printed out news article on my chair that said, "How to report to a millennial," with the smiley face
Oh,
sticker on
wow.
it.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even know how to react. I didn't know who had put it on my chair, and I had no idea how to react to this on day one. And so I just decided to embrace it instead. And I just want to say the most important criteria for success for young executives is really gracious team members. I really, really believe that.
So on the flip side of that, obviously, like one of the questions that I get asked pretty frequently, right, around the age topic actually surprisingly comes from the other side of the spectrum of folks who feel that they're too old to transition into cyber or to transition and just generally make a career change at all. Having been somebody who's been on the younger side of that and whatnot, do you believe that our industry is one that where age plays a huge part into whether you can be successful or whether you can succeed in our industry?
Absolutely not. And I just want to say that it's all about the expertise. And I really do believe that in today's day and age, there is so much content and training readily available for folks who want to pick up information security, cybersecurity, GRC topics, and really get to know them. And I think that's one of the best parts of this industry, actually.
That's awesome, and I thank you so very much for saying that. Hopefully, everybody else who's been listening to me say it for years, for 4 years now that we've been streaming, hears you say that and takes that away. As a matter of fact, somebody clipped that and put it up on the internet. Words of wisdom from a young CEO and co-founder. So you're here this morning. You're joining us this morning. One of the things I really want to dive into and really talk to you is I really want to pick on your expertise around GRC. Um, you know, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to GRC. We've talked about GRC on this stream. I will self admit that I had a CISO, a former CISO that was on the stream with me, and we kind of called GRC the garbage job of the cybersecurity industry. So hopefully you don't take any offense to that. But there is kind of a stigma that GRC isn't a real cybersecurity job because it's non-technical, because it just deals with policies and risk and compliance. Can you kind of debunk that myth just a little bit? Like, why is GRC important to cybersecurity?
What a great question. I like to make a couple analogies here. So one is that I think of CISOs and security teams as kind of the people have to come and fight fires, right? They come in, the fire comes on, you call them up and you're like, we need you to come over here. There's all these things going on. But there's people who set up the fire protection codes, who come and make sure that things are safe, so that you're not always worried about a fire breaking out every 5 minutes. And that's GRC. They do that kind of unsexy job so that way people have a little bit more peace of mind when they're walking in and everyone feels a little bit calmer about the day to day. That's how I like to think about GRC. And I actually like to think of it, it's like politics. If things are calm, you don't really need to pay attention to it. And that's the ideal state. So
I
that's sort
think
of where we're at.
I think Ryan Reynolds played in a movie called the Hitman's Bodyguard, where he said boring is always better.
Exactly. Exactly. But I think we can make GRC sexy, but that's just me.
But if GRC is supposed to put all of these policies and stuff into place, what good does it do to put policies in place if nobody pays attention to them?
That's a really good question. And that's where I think it's not just about putting the policies in place, it's about awareness and training. And a lot of GRC teams take that on. They somehow take on a role of at least overseeing or putting the right processes in place to not just throw policies into the abyss, but to actually take up the next mantle of saying, how do you get teams to learn and understand and then operate along those policies?
When it comes to implementing those policies, when it comes to kind of playing that role of policeman or firefighter or, code developer in the sense of like, this type of enforcement regulation type of thing inside of enterprises, it's hard to get buy-in from the entirety of the business unit. I can remember my days at Abbott, we had 7 different business units, and, we tried very hard to put a policy in place that was specific enough to stop threats or to hedge risk, but also general enough to where it could be applied to 7 vastly different business units. How complicated is it? Like, I know we talk about like that's what they should be doing, but let's talk about like how realistically complicated it is to get consensus, to get buy-in, and to get implementation across the enterprise when it comes to these types of things.
Totally agree. And it's a real struggle. I think the best kind of solution set that I've seen is having a company-wide policy and then team-specific procedures. And even that can get really tricky because it is difficult to manage all of these different areas of the business. I really do believe that, there's this big chasm, I think, at too many companies between the GRC compliance functions and the actual first line of defense business teams that are out there. And the most success that I've seen in actually implementing GRC policies and really living by them is when there's actually a close relationship. And it's so funny, Neil, because we think it could be process or set meetings, but it's not. It's people. It's people talking to people. And it's, I think you had John Moore on the stream a couple weeks ago or something, and he was talking about how business-minded CISOs have to become more technical-minded. Technical-minded CISOs have to become more business-minded. I actually believe that across the space. So GRC folks have to become more business-minded. Business folks have to become more GRC-minded. And when they do that, they start to connect and relate on a level that is much more human. And as simple as it sounds, I think that is what is the most successful.
I think that's really key, because I can laugh as you say like GRC folks need to become more human, and it's not a far line between GRC and internal audit. And I can remember dealing with a lot of internal audit folks, and this is obviously before the AI trend kind of picked up, and I was like, man, these guys are like working with robots. There's like zero personality to these people whatsoever.
And you know what? On the flip side, what they're saying about you, not you necessarily, but what they're saying is, I have sent this request 7 times and no one has responded to it. They have to become robots because they're tired of being ignored. So I have to stick up for my internal audit people because I feel for them as well.
No, I make no presumptions about how easy or hard it is to deal with internal audit. Everybody hates you. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like whenever an internal audit request did come through, it was like, oh God, not again. We had an entire team set up at Abbott where it was like, when the internal audit sent a request, there was one person who received it, and it was almost like her job was to stand up a tiger team of like, okay, who are all the SMEs that I need inside the CISO organization to respond to this internal audit request? And it was just like, it was almost like we had to strategize a counteroffensive to some type of incursion whenever internal audit would come through.
I get that. And don't forget, they know that you're doing it and they know exactly how people feel about them. So that's wwhy I always say, let's give some love to our internal audit folks who have to do this. But if everyone becomes more human, works out. Because then I call you and I say, hey, Neil, how's golf going right now?
Yeah.
By the way, can you send me this piece of evidence? Anyway, when's your next golf game? And
right.
Things change. Sounds silly, but it matters.
For my new folks in the chat, we call that a compliment sandwich. Where it's led by a compliment with a request and then a compliment there at the end. That's the political correct technique for what she just did there. No, that's awesome. And I do talk heavily about we have a problem in cyber, especially on our technical folks. So all my technical folks who are listening across the streams, right? You're going to groan at this. I know you are. I'm looking across to see who's going to pre-groan at all this this business and this people talk. They're like, no, I just want to be a nerd. I just want to play on my keyboard. I just want to write my code. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to understand business or anything like that. But it sounds like from your perspective, like the successful GRC teams and ultimately the successful security organizations are the ones that have kind of mastered that ability to almost treat their function as a service and be able to talk with their peers in an organization.
And great point that you were just saying, treat their function as a service. Some of our clients actually talk about themselves as basically a service team, and they talk about the rest of the business as their clients, which I always like. When I hear that, it really seeps into the way that the whole team is thinking and the way that everyone treats everybody else. And I think part of thinking of yourself as this consultant or thinking of yourself as a service provider and the rest of your company is your client is that you think about ways that you can make everyone's lives easier. And, you think about ways you can automate, ways you can not ever have to borrow that person, where I can just call you and just ask about your golf game because in the background, some, integration is picking up the evidence that I otherwise would have needed to ask you for. And instead I can just say, hey, Neil, just want to, give this a look, or I have a little follow-up question. You feel better. I feel better. And so that's where we're really headed. And I'm seeing that change at the enterprise level. I mean, the last year, I think it's completely changed.
But let's make one thing super clear, though. When you say make everybody's lives easier, we're not saying, oh, you want to have a 4-character password. It makes your life easier to have a 4-character password. We're going to let it. Like, what do you mean by like being a service that makes your clients' lives easier when it comes to being GRC or really any cyber service in an organization?
Thanks for clarifying. The thought of a 4-character password actually hurts me a little bit. So I'm
but
glad
there's
said
somebody
that.
out there
This is not
thinking
what
that
it's
like,
about.
oh, cool, you're going to make my life easier. I want 4 characters on my password.
And I don't ever want to change it. I never want to get those pings every quarter to change it. You're right. I think what it's about is thinking of those kind of repetitive work that GRC teams just have to do to keep us all a little safer, to keep us all a little bit more compliant. And it's things like the bane of everyone else's existence is getting evidence requests twice a year, 4 times a year. It's just one simple example. But the idea of moving from having to go and reach out to people to prove evidence to actually self-integrating with these different sources of truth, putting up specific tests that different data inputs have to go through to validate compliance, and only going to the business owners when they need to ask a higher level question, right? Which everyone is honestly happy to engage with because everyone cares about keeping their organization safe, their team safer, their company more compliant. And so those are the kind of breaks. I can go on and on with examples, but one more I'll just say is, I don't know if you've ever had to get a software through your security team's third-party review process, but it can be it's not every business person's favorite thing to have to go and do. And so if you can automate that process by saying, you know what, you don't have to chase me over email, you don't have to chase the vendor over email, we'll get this out to them automatically, AI will review it when it comes back. Those are the kinds of things that make everyone's lives easier.
So I wasn't going to go there. But you said the dirty word, and my chat knows this. Hopefully, I wonder if chat heard this dirty word that you said. You said third-party risk, and my chat knows that I have a hate, wish it would die in a fire, hate relationship with third-party risk. I think that third-party risk is the most useless GRC function. Prove me wrong.
This is a big topic, Neil. I really do not agree with you. I'm not going to lie. Third-party risk today is, to me, the way to ensure that your spokes are all going in the way that you need them to be going. So as a company that's using, actually, I just want to use the example from last week, right? You have CrowdStrike and Microsoft. And again, I know it's not exactly the same, but the point I'm trying to make is that no longer do companies operate in silos. We're all interconnected. You have some third parties that you absolutely rely on for critical infrastructure. You have companies that are basically partners who your own clients start to see you as intertwined. And that means you're lending them your social capital, or their actions affect you. And I really believe that in a world where trust is paramount right now, you've got to make sure that you're lending, your own credibility, and you're kind of ensuring those protections that you're so confidently offering your own client base, they've got to extend to the partners that you choose. And that's what third-party risk to me is really, really about. Making sure that your third parties that you're trusting, that your clients are trusting via you, are actually living up to that level of trust.
So I'm going to push on you a little bit, right? Let's use the Microsoft and CrowdStrike example, and let's use Microsoft as part of that, as part of that duo, and just pick on them for a second, right? So we know that Microsoft was part and parcel with the problem that happened with CrowdStrike last week, but that's not the first time that Microsoft has, in some way, been at the center of some type of downtime controversy that's associated with its products, right? I think we can agree on that, just as professionals. If third-party risk was important, what do you think the percentage of Microsoft clients are that are going to leave Microsoft because of an increased risk due to potential downtime and loss of revenue?
From Microsoft's third-party partners, right?
Yeah. Well,
Is
from
that what
Microsoft,
you're asking?
if Microsoft is the third party, what
Oh, if
percentage of
Microsoft is the
yeah,
third
if
party.
Microsoft's the
I
third
see, I see.
party, what percentage of Microsoft's clients are going to leave them because of an increased risk of downtime?
I want to talk a little bit about almost there are some companies out there who almost transcend some of this trust conversation that we're having because they've built trust over decades. And they're such, blue chip in terms of trust, right? They're such, everyone knows that they're not going anywhere and that you can trust them because overall they're trying to do the right thing. Now, that's a very big statement
That
because
is a
you
very big
have a lot of
statement.
big tech. It's a very big statement because you have a lot of big tech who people don't really feel that way about. But what I'm trying to say is that from a security perspective, they're invested, that they are not going to be making silly decisions about your security as a user. And so I think what ends up happening is that I almost put Microsoft and some of the, big tech companies in a little bit of a league of their own. And I'm talking a little bit more in terms of truly, I'm talking more about those companies that are still trying to build trust with the average person. I mean, you stop anyone on the street and they know Microsoft. But you stop anyone on the street, they don't know, the company that you're working at and you're trying to make a trusting reputation for yourselves, right? And so I think that that's the big difference. That if you're one of those companies that's trying to build trust and then something happens with one of your third parties, it's a shortcut way to lose trust with your own clients.
So what I hear you say, if it's fair to say, is that you think that there's a percentage of the marketplace where, your market value or your market ownership has positioned you in such a place that trust doesn't matter at the end of the day, because nobody is going to deny you the ability to do business regardless of what your risk posture could potentially be to the enterprise. Is that a fair kind of overall categorization of that statement?
I don't think so. It's not that trust doesn't matter. I think that it's almost becomes a percentage. And if you think about it's like percentage based on use, right? And it's if you think about the, billion plus people using Microsoft products many times a day, you almost start to think of it, at least I think as a consumer. I'm just going to call myself as a consumer. The way that I see it is that look, there are blips on the radar of an otherwise pretty secure and sound platforms, I would say, from this organization that everybody uses all the time. So I start to think of it more like that versus when you're looking at a smaller company that's trying to build trust, they don't have as many data points. So when you're thinking about something going wrong, it's one out of a billion instead of one out of 100 trillion. And
So
so that difference matters.
so let's pick on the small guy then, and I want to give you a scenario, and it's not an edge scenario. I dealt with this scenario extensively in both of the large manufacturing environments that I've worked for, where you've got a small company, a small. I hardly call them a multi or a mom and pop shop, but I mean, in comparison for the companies that they were servicing, they were a small vendor. They provided a niche product. Maybe it was a diaphragm for a medical device, or maybe it was a very specific ingredient, a very specific, nut or, chocolate or something like that for a large manufacturer. They've got maybe 10 or 15 people that are in this company. They're no bigger than some startups that exist out there, but they are the only vendor that provides this critical manufacturing resource for these large enterprises. They don't have a security team. They don't have a SOC 2. They don't have a password policy. The one IT guy is also probably the same IT guy that's doing the security, if it's not, some outsourced, you know, brothers, uncles, cousins type of person doing the IT security. There is clearly IT and cyber risk there, but they're the only vendor that provides this piece, this critical widget for an enterprise. Nobody's ever going to deny them the ability to work with that enterprise. It's arguable that they have the highest risk profile of the example you just give, but the enterprise isn't going to make a business decision to not work with them based on that risk profile. Is that a fair statement?
I think it was a very fair statement, even up to 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, even. I think things are changing a bit, but overall, yes, I agree with you.
So then if the big players are exempt because they've built decades of trust, and the little people who you say are more prone, more likelihood to those failures, and we're going to exempt them because they provide these niche services to big enterprises, then who does third party risk really apply to?
So a few things. First of all, I could answer that question and take the bait a little bit and say everyone in the middle.
You've watched too many of my streams. You have watched way too many of my streams.
I'm not going to take it. But if I was to take the bait, I would just say that percentage-wise, by the way, the small guys and the big guys that we're talking about here still leaves 80% of companies in the middle who are thinking about third-party risk. But anyway, I just want to go back to, because I think that things have changed. And I do agree that 3-5 years ago, the big enterprise would not blink twice and they would take the 15 person company that has no IT security to speak of. I actually don't think that would happen today, Neil, honestly.
Really?
And I say that because we're working with these clients. We're working with these bigger enterprises who are assessing these smaller companies. And actually what's happening is the opposite. They're pushing them to get SOC 2, to get ISO 27001, to get some semblance of data security, third party, like attestation, actually. And so that they can not be breaking with their internal policy at these enterprises. And I'm actually seeing that more and more. You don't know how many clients come to us and say, shoot, we actually have this enterprise client we really want to sign, but we can't sign them until we get SOC 2, until we prove XYZ. And so they come to us. And the fact that that's happening tells me that there's something else going on. And actually, I just want to talk about that is third-party risk. That is literally third-party risk. Maybe if an enterprise is saying yes to a 15-person company with no IT security, I would bet in today's day and age, it's because they've assessed that risk. Maybe they've said, hey, this company has no real personal data. They're just manufacturing some bolts for us. So it's not too much of a risk. Maybe they say, we've checked their 3 controls that matter to us, that they're, when they're not retaining our data, they're not keeping any of our personal data, they're not doing this, and because they're also just manufacturing products for us, we accept this risk. But the conversation around that's third party risk.
I have to give you credit. Richard, because I've had this third party risk, and people have taken the bait from me before, and they've fallen trapped to it. This is probably the most sound argument I've received for third party risk. I'm still a cynical old guy when it comes to third-party risk, because I think until that trend, personally, this is Neil's opinion, I think until that trend becomes the majority and not the minority, I think that third-party risk I still stand on my pedestal that says third-party risk is pretty useless. I hope you're right. I do. I hope you're right. I hope we get to see more and more of those trends. I want to pivot us over now because I want to pick on something you said earlier about being more human and having human interactions with with your clients, if you will, as a GRC team inside of a security organization, and talk about AI. Because isn't AI the antithesis of being more human?
AI, if you look at it at a superficial level, may seem like the antithesis of being more human. But in fact, what I think AI enables us to become more human because it unlocks our time back. It actually takes care of the manual tasks that, one, take up your time, so you don't have time to be human, but also they take up your mind space. And just think about your own life. After you've done a manual data entry task, what kind of mood are you in, Neil? Just want to ask you.
I want to go. Yeah. There's lots of things that I probably shouldn't say on stream.
Do you want to bang your head against a wall? Because I sure do. So what if you instead came in the morning, you have your tea, and AI has done a bunch of manual tasks for you, and you don't have to do those anymore? How do you feel compared to after you've done a bunch of data entry? I'm going to bet you feel a lot better.
So I'm going to channel the entire community across all the platforms and hear them all running and screaming as they are literally saying inside their heads, see, Neil, AI is going to take my job. AI is going to take my job. Richa just said it. AI is going to take my job. What have you done?
That's not true, because what I'm saying is that it's taken up the manual repetitive tasks, which we don't need people to be focusing on. What we need people to be focusing on is the strategic work that comes after that. Let's just keep pressing on third-party risk, because I know it's your favorite topic. So let's think about this example. This is one of my favorite examples. Oftentimes big enterprises, they have to send out as part of their third-party management process, a vendor comes in the door because a business team wants to bring on the vendor.
Oh, you're going to talk about questionnaires, aren't you?
I'm going to talk about
Oh,
questionnaires because they are really a great topic for thinking about AI.
yeah.
So a vendor comes in and you have to assess them. What happens today? In today's world, what happens right now is poor security Joe is sending over a questionnaire via Excel or sometimes Word document over to this third party vendor who then responds. They respond in whatever format they please. They miss some questions, they answer whatever. And poor security Joe has to sit here and read manually through everything. I promise you, those questionnaires go up to 200 questions
Yeah.
plus, and it is. We're talking about manual tasks. We're going to bang your head against a wall.
Yeah.
It is rough because you're not only checking, oh, wait a second, they've answered this question the wrong way. That creates risk for my business. You're also checking, have they even filled this in right? Can I believe this answer? I mean, there's so much other stuff poor security Joe has to do. And then once he's done with that, he has to go back to the vendor and say, hey, can you re-answer these, please? And then once that's over, let's say it's been 2 weeks now he has to sit down and assess the risk. Now, imagine if he didn't have to do all of those first steps, then he could just sit down and assess the risk and really take the time to understand, is this a real risk for my business? Does this really matter? How can I problem solve with this vendor to try to get them over the hump if we really need to work with them? All of a sudden, there's time for all of this strategic work. And that's where I just feel that we stop the conversation about AI at level 1. We really need to bring it to level 3.
Mm. So I'm having PTSD as you're talking about these vendor questionnaires because, working at a startup, obviously I deal with vendor questionnaires pretty frequently. And I am Security Joe who has to complete said questionnaire and send it back. And I'm having PTSD and I'm really trying very hard to stifle that desire to want to cry right here on stream. Yeah, I do think that there's value in the low level automation. Automation may not be the best way to put it, but that doesn't sound advanced. That doesn't sound like when you hear people talk about all these, advancements that we see and all these moving, the way that AI is going to innovate cybersecurity. You've got, the EDRs and the network devices out there saying like, oh, we're going to do AI enabled detection and response. And you're over here talking about just like automating questionnaires. Like, how do you defend like the sexiness around AI when all you're doing is you're just automating answering questionnaires? Why can't I just get like an RPA or something like that just to like have a canned statement and answer those questions whenever they come in?
There's a few ways to answer this question. So one of them is that, of course, this is just one example, right? I'm giving one specific workflow of AI just to make it real and talk about how it really affects that manual workload. There's a lot of AI out there in the GRC and security space, which is very specific to, I'm going to say, sexier problems, since we've been using that word, and it's very flashy. It's very, very intelligent. It's going to change the game. And I think that it doesn't change the principle of the example that I gave, which again is just one small example of one workflow in a sea of workflows that GRC and security teams deal with every single day. But the output is still the same. When you are thinking about, detection and response, right? How many kind of false positives do CISOs have to deal with all the time right now? So many. And they have to spend the time reviewing those to get to a point where they can say it's a false positive.
Yes.
And sure, they can still do that if they want to. But again, going back to the strategic work comes after some of that. The strategic work comes in actually battling the real battles, the real positives, the real issues that come up. And that's where I just think we need to make a little bit of a switch in saying, okay, as I think there's a common phrase now that says, AI is not taking people's jobs. AI is taking jobs of people who don't know how to use AI. And I really live by that.
Yeah. I agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Let's talk about it from the founder perspective and building a startup, right? Black Hat and DEF CON is this week. I didn't go to Black Hat, but I can only imagine from the people that I've talked to that AI is plastered all over the wall. I heard from a CEO recently that the marketing messages at Black Hat this year were probably some of the worst and deceiving and just generally bad. They've ruined our industry with marketing when it comes to how they message things, particularly around AI. And so how do you when you walked into this problem, you walked into solving this challenge, how did you avoid stepping into that pile of poo to where AI wasn't just a buzzword for you?
Yeah, it's about the real value that the tech provides. So I like this framing of this question because I think the reality is it doesn't matter if something is powered by AI. In fact, I would bet, let's bet right now. Let's bet right now that in 3 years we're going to talk about this and no one's going to be using the words AI anymore.
Absolutely.
It's just going to be part of life.
Yeah.
And I think that what we've got to come to is that using the word AI, especially when it means a chatbot or some very other superficial functionality, that just drives people crazy.
Yeah.
I think everyone's coming to a point where they're being driven crazy. I know you were being driven crazy by that from our first conversation. And so I think that what it is that, one, you don't need to say AI every 2 seconds. That's really not the goal here. And especially don't say it when your AI is just a chatbot that's glorified chat GPT that you've stuck your logo on and put into your product in a way doesn't really deliver a whole lot of value. Where do you find value? You got to know the people that you're trying to impact, right? You got to understand, what is the CISO's flow and how can I actually positively affect his or her life? What is this GRC VP's flow, and what are some of the work that AI can actually take over from them so that they can focus on the strategic stuff that they got to deal with? And I think that's where AI becomes useful, and rather than just being a buzzword. Curious if you agree, though, because we've had this discussion.
We have had this discussion, and I think my stance on this has always been that, like, you're right. Like, the people who stick their logo on a chat GPT version of a chatbot and say that they're AI powered absolutely infuriates me. I think that the value that chat GPT has is that their customer base is the entire world. And so they've based their model on the personas and the content and the comments and the constructs of the world that has fed their models. But if you're a security tool and a security technology, your model needs to be specific to the clients that you're servicing. And so you can't generalize that. You have to be specific. And I think one of the things that has frustrated me is when I talk to folks who say, like, oh, we've got an AI empowered detection engine, like, cool, like, okay, what does that mean for me? Well, that means that we're digesting all this stuff from around the world and giving you access to it. And it's like, cool, so you're chat GPT, right? Because it's like, that's not my problem. Like, and whether CISOs want to admit it or not, like, it's cool to talk to my peers, but I'm concerned about my problems. Like, I'm the one who has to talk to the board. I'm the one who has to talk to the CEO. I'm the one who has to defend the enterprise, right? I'm the one, I care about my world and my fiefdom. And so what is it going to do for me? And I think that that's always been my frustration with how we've seen marketing, is that you're right. It's slapped on every label, but it doesn't say what it's actually going to do for me to make my workflow better. I'll give an example of we've taken this at heart at Query, where we've held off. We've got an AI in our domain name. We've held off even talking about AI in our product because we recognize that it needs to solve a problem for the user that is specific to them and specific to the challenges they're going through. And it's not just about marketing for us. And so I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think the best AI, quite honestly, is the AI that you never hear about from the marketing team.
Mm-hmm. And there's two tips I would almost give to anyone who's basically trying to understand whether or not the AI that their vendor is trying to sell to them is real. And there's the two tips I would give is, one, ask them what is powering that AI. And if they say Chat GPT, then you know that can I do this maybe some other way? Is this really adding a lot of value to my life? And I'll come back to what the right answer is in just a second. And the other question I would ask is it embedded within the workflows of the product that you are reviewing or that you are kind of trying to work in right now? Those two things will give you, I think, a good almost litmus test of, is this AI real AI that's going to be valuable to me, or is this just marketing AI? So again, going through those. So question one, what is actually powering your AI? Now, a bad answer, or an answer that you could live without, I would say, is it's Chat GPT, but we've got it in the product working for you in this way. Okay. From a security perspective, that's also not great because that means that your answers are actually going back to support the Chat GPT model. Now, a good answer is something around how they have the enterprise version of some type of LLM where Microsoft or Google is making commitments to never use that data, never store that data at all, and the company itself is also making the same commitment. And that immediately is how you know, okay, first of all, they're taking their security very seriously. The second piece to know, the kind of to make that a good answer, is that they should be using maybe something like a RAG infrastructure that's basically using your context as a client to improve the results of the AI for you, but not storing or returning back either the context or the results back to the model. And that's how you know if they know what they're talking about, that is the answer that they give to you. That's on their AI privacy one pager. That's one big thing. And I actually want to come back and ask you about that, Neil.
Yeah.
But just the second thing to round out the first point is that, and then it's about being embedded in workflows. So if you've got a chat bot on the bottom right of the screen, I don't know. I don't know. I think that most large enterprises now have their own Microsoft OpenAI subscription, and they can probably work through that to get the value. But if you're embedded directly in an automation workflow, where again, the focus is not AI, it's about getting the end-to-end work done, then that's where the AI can really shine and be useful and doesn't need to be marketed as AI. That was a long answer, but I hope that makes sense because I really am passionate about this.
No, I know you're passionate about it, and that's why I wanted to have you on here. And your answer is absolutely perfect. Hopefully one of my admins or my video guys got a clip of that, because those answers are exactly spot on. And I think that the workflow piece, when I talk about AI, when I talk about where I, as a technologist, as a longtime cyber practitioner, as a CISO, where I look for value is, yes, to your point, is I look back at my team at Abbott, because it was a large SOC team, large security team just as a whole. The SOC team was about 75 people large. And unfortunately, more than a third of that SOC team had to be dedicated to a lot of tactical level repetitive tasks. So much so that at the time, obviously SOAR, I think Splunk had just bought Phantom, Palo, I think it just bought Demisto. And so obviously we were like, okay, we really need to be thinking about a SOAR strategy, because we needed automation to, at the time, replace a lot of these repetitive tasks. And it wasn't that I wanted to get rid of my level ones. It was that I needed my level ones to do more level 2 and level 3 type of work, because that was where I needed their expertise more than on the level 1 type of stuff. And so I think that the only way to accomplish that is for it to be embedded in your workflow. And I think that that's fundamentally the right answer, is like, is the AI an actual workflow improvement? I think that of the two that you give, that would be the one that I would double click on right there and say, like, to me, if you can't articulate that, it's useless AI.
I genuinely agree with you. I really do. And I think this is what we bonded over in our very first call, is this exact point. And for those who don't know, Neil joined the call and I was telling him about, we got this AI powered GRC solution, and he interrupted and said, let me stop you right there. I don't believe in AI. I don't think, I'm a skeptic. And then over the course of the conversation, I totally changed the way that I pitched it. And I said, look, forget AI. Let's just look at the workflows. Let's just look at what time is going to get saved. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about right now.
So for those who are listening in chat, you can see that the same way that I'm on stream is the same way that I'm on the call when I talk to my peers in the industry or vendors that I work with or other CEOs as well. Like you all are seeing the raw Neil, as weird as it is to see the Neil on stream. You can see that I'm pretty much the same way. No, that's exactly right, because I not just as a single CISO who also does all the tactical level stuff in a startup, having run those large organizations, the thing that always bothered me is knowing that my people were wasting time on things that shouldn't take as long as they took to do. And I'm not one who's going to rush to say, well, your people are incompetent. I don't believe that. I think that we've created a quagmire of difficult tasks in cybersecurity that unfortunately didn't need to be created over the decades of us, having an industry in this world.
Agreed. Your people are not incompetent. Your people are tired.
Yeah.
They're tired. They have so much work to do all the time. And by the way, in today's economy, teams are shrinking.
Yeah.
So you're being asked to do more and more and more with less and less and less. And people are tired. They need a reprieve. They need to be able to alleviate manual tasks. They didn't come to the world of cybersecurity to do level one work. They came to the world of cybersecurity to be challenged and to keep their organization safe and to grow and develop professionally, which I know, Neil, you're a huge advocate of. And how can we do that when there's so many manual tasks that have to get done? You have to hand them off to someone, but that doesn't actually help them.
So hold on for a second now. You just said AI wasn't going to come to take jobs, but you just said teams were shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are teams
Yeah.
shrinking if AI is not taking the jobs?
It's not the AI. Believe me, AI has not even penetrated the world enough and the workforce enough to even see an impact of that taking jobs. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about actually, unfortunately, what's happening, what we are seeing across our clients is that unfortunately companies are shrinking some teams. And it's to a point where, I think there's a couple things happening. One is that CISO, security teams, GRC professionals, they're just tired. They have a lot of pressure on them. They're holding up a lot. There's an ever increasing number of standards, number of threats, number of new types of risks that are coming every day, week, month, year. My goodness, the landscape looks different 6 months apart. And those folks they're like Atlas, they got the whole world on their shoulders. They're trying to protect, and they ask for more budget, and sometimes that gets denied. And I think they get frustrated. And I think that it's coming to a point where there's two things that are happening. One is that those folks who really care, and they care about that compliance with the why, they care about, what is the real risk reduction behind these types of efforts, they're not necessarily getting the support that they need. And so they start to move over to a company that they feel might give them more of that support. And the other thing that's happening is that executive teams are saying, hey, GRC is doing pretty well. Security is doing pretty well. We're going to keep the C-level in place, but we can cut some costs here. We're going to reduce the mid-management. We're going to keep the C-level. We're going to keep the analyst and analyst plus level. And we're seeing some of that. So those trends coming together, in fact, I would almost argue the opposite. It's not AI causing them. I think AI will at least help to alleviate some of the burden that those trends are creating.
So obviously, like there's a good. I've just posted this on X the other day. Like there's a record number of tech layoffs in the industry, and this year alone, I think the stat that I found when I made that post was something like 64,000 or maybe 640,000. It was a crazy number. I think it was 64,000 already this year, just in the tech sector in terms of tech layoffs. It's your feel from your clients, from the ones you're talking to. It's that middle management. Like, is it arguable to say they're the ones who? I'm totally going to pick on my middle managers of Stream right here. The ones who actually don't do the work that are most impacted, and it's a lot of the low level analysts who are like, hey, like it or not, it's cheaper labor. They have more risk in their life than maybe some of the middle managements who may have retirements or stock options or things like that. And because of that, there's a sense in executive leadership that they can overload them and give them more work and put some more stress on them and keep them keep them tethered to the employment chain a little bit longer. I know that's a very cynical approach, but is that kind of the cynical sense and impression that you're getting when you talk to folks?
I think that it's not because the middle manager is not doing work. I just want to say that really, really clearly, because I know you were just saying that.
Yeah.
I really want to go in on that, because I think one of the most difficult things about security and GRC teams is that everyone is doing the work, because the work is so urgent. The work is so high priority that what ends up happening is, as you know, it's a team sport.
Yeah.
Everyone pitches in and everyone has to roll up their sleeves, get their hands dirty. And that makes it even harder when someone leaves the organization, and when there's not a good way to institutionalize their knowledge, and there's not a good way to provide continuity when someone leaves. I would even go so far as to argue the middle management knows what's going on the most, more than the C-level, more than the analysts, because they have to bring in the weeds what's going on with the managerial instincts and prioritization that they're getting from their executive team. And they're bringing those two forces together, and they're trying their darn best to make it all work and to find a way to balance, the security and compliance needs of the organization against the true budgetary constraints, or frankly, manpower and resource constraints that they've been handed. And so when I see these folks, again, they're both self-selecting to leave, and there's some cuts. When I see this happen, and we did a small analysis across our client base, over 40% of our clients have had, I'm going to say, material turnover in the last 6 to 9 months. Material. And that means C-level, mid-management, that layer. That's so much. And that's about 50-50 self-selected to leave, as well as unfortunately being asked to leave. And I think what it comes down to is not folks saying, oh, we can do away with them.
Hmm.
I think it's just the pressure is on different organizations right now, and they're looking for some way to grapple with it. And they're, as you said, they're kind of doing some math and saying, well, we can't, we can't really do without the C-level. We can't really, do without these analysts because they're kind of make sense financially to have them on. But the turnover is tough. And in a privileged position where I get the chance to advise, GRC leaders and security folks every single day, I hear some of this, and it's tough to hear. I'm curious, Neil, for you, you have such a huge community. I mean, are you seeing this too?
Oh, we've got unfortunately more people than I can count inside of our community who unfortunately have been affected by a lot of those tech layoffs. The folks that reach out to me on the regular asking if I can help them find jobs. We had Jax on yesterday, and it was
Yeah.
one of the few opportunities where I get to have somebody come on and say, look, we're hiring, please. These are the types of folks that we need people. And so, it's fewer and far between that we have folks come in advertising jobs or talking about, that they're hiring or that they're bringing people in. And unfortunately, I've answered more questions than I care to. In the last 4 years of streaming, you can definitely tell that like the first 2 or 3 years of streaming, I was telling people like the market's in a great shape, go out and get you a job, progress your career, make the most out of it. And in the last year ish or so that I've been talking, it's been exactly the opposite. Everybody needs to hunker down. Everybody needs to hold on to their cash. Everybody needs to build strong foundations because the world's in a vastly different place. I'm curious though, I want to tie personnel turnover, whether it's voluntarily or, driven by rifts or things like that, to risk. How much does a manpower decision like that affect an organization's cybersecurity risk?
Yeah. If there's no real continuity and institutionalization of that knowledge, it directly poses a risk. In fact, I would say the majority of our clients actually list that on their risk register as one of their real risks that they consider is
Wow.
turnover within their team. I've actually seen it. This is not a small subset. I would say large majority.
Hmm.
And partly that's because I think we also advise them to do that. But I think it's because, it's very, very real. I mean, let's go back to the kind of fire team example, right? You go in there, if your fire chief leaves and none of their knowledge has been written down or communicated across these folks, you're going to feel that. Your firefighting squad is going to feel that change because all of a sudden they need to figure out, okay, wait a second, how do I respond to this? I mean, God forbid an incident happens the next day, and what happens? Some of that knowledge just ends up being part of pattern recognition, part of experience, part of being at that company and having done that before, knowing the people who need to get involved. And so what happens is if you don't have, I'm going to say tech, if you don't have something to institutionalize that knowledge and make sure you have continuity, you create a very big risk in your business. I'm sure you would agree.
I absolutely agree, and I wanted you to say it out loud because what I want the community to understand is that I think I actually mentioned this a couple Fridays ago. Like, it's not personal when this stuff happens, right? It is just business, and your voice, while you may not appreciate the way that this voice comes across, it doesn't help you pay your bills and it doesn't help you pay your mortgage, put food on your table. And I get that, I understand that. Organizations still realize that your presence of not being there is still a risk, and they are fighting to try to keep you there. They're fighting to try to make the organization aware that, like, hey, I understand you're looking at numbers, but like getting rid of this person or getting rid of this team is genuinely bad for us. I want people to understand that there's more to that equation than I think sometimes they're privy to when they go through this process. And so I appreciate that. Real quick, we're coming up on time, and I know that you've got to get back to your day job, and I really do appreciate you spending time with me and my community. I want to give you the floor for a second and just give you an opportunity. Thank you so very much for coming on the stream. Thank you so much for spending time with my team. My team don't go anywhere. We're gonna continue our AMA here after this. But Rich, I want to give you an opportunity to say something to the community, talk a little bit about compliance, and I'll send you on your way.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Neil. I would just use the platform and the opportunity just to first of all say thanks to Neil. Thanks to everyone who joined in today. It's such a pleasure to be able to chat with folks and chat about topics that I care about so much and don't get the opportunity to dive into. And I would just ask, I guess, everyone to think about how you can make your own lives easier with tech. I know that it sounds silly and we talk about AI and we think about, that's something that's buzzword, that's superficial, that's not going to help me. But again, getting some knowledge around what is out there, what can actually help you, how you can make an impact for your team. And that's your direct team. That's the folks you have to ask for evidence or ask for help on any workflows every day. I would just say, learn about what's out there. There's a new world of technology there specifically meant to help you. And it's not just to help you save time, it's to help you, again, have more time for the strategic tasks so that we can all keep our world a little bit safer, a little bit more compliant, a little bit more boring, let's say, because boring is good.
Thank you so much, Richa. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Oh, that's awesome. She's amazing. I want to just, because the FCC will complain if I don't, that was not a paid stream. At no point in time was she paid, did she pay to be here? I just genuinely enjoy her views on GRC and compliance and AI specifically. And so I asked her to be here. That was not a paid stream. And so hopefully you all got the benefit out of that I did from having her here. She is amazing. You can hit that exclamation point guest in chat. We'll make sure that link gets posted over to LinkedIn and to YouTube as well. But I absolutely think that she is going places and she is awesome. So with that being said, we can recommence our typical Friday AMA. Always love starting I kind of like that, starting the day with an interview. That was pretty good. And she's got a good attitude and a good personality for that too. So happy Friday, everybody. Good to see everybody. Looking to see if there's a couple questions that have come up into chat. This one looks pretty good. Don't forget this great opportunity to get those questions dropped in. We'll do some AMA this morning, kind of hang out and have a good time. And I do want to answer that pinned question. Whenever that comes back around. What was that? Where did that question go? Oh, there it is. It's right there. What can an analyst do to prepare for a cloud IR engagement? So, the cloud part trips me up. And let me explain why the cloud part trips me up, right? This is going to be a hot take. This is going to definitely be a dissenting opinion. There's a little bit of a mentality where we treat cloud and OT and IT systems differently. And while that statement in a general sense is true, it's not as vast of a different opinion as you may realize, right? For instance, a data center is a collection of computers. What's a cloud environment? It's a collection of computers. They happen to be virtualized, but it is a collection of computers, right? Okay, so you've got a server in a data center. What does the server have on it, right? It's got a network card, it's got a network interface, it's got an operating system, right? It's probably got an application on it. Well, what does the cloud have? Well, cloud has things with a network interface on it, right? EC2 instances have a network interface on them, right? There's probably some form of an operating system running on it, unless it's a serverless, right? There's traffic that comes inbound and outbound of it, right? There's probably some application that runs on it or around it. And so I say all that to say, like cautionary tales when you talk about I want to do cloud computing, or I want to do, what is an IR? How do I prepare for an IR engagement in the cloud, right? Well, how would you prepare for an IR engagement with a computer in a data center? Right? Is it that fundamentally different? And so just make sure that you're asking yourself, are you conflating, are you using cloud in the right way? What difference does it make that it's cloud? Sure, it may be virtualized. Sure, you may have a different org structure in terms of everything kind of pertains to an organization on down. Maybe you have to pay attention to different ways in which things are architected from that perspective, but it is still fundamentally an input and an output mechanism whereby you have to assess the input and the output to see what the impact is to the organization. And so fundamentally, how as an analyst do you prepare for cloud engagements? It's hard to tell. Are you talking about pen testing, or are you talking about incident response engagements? Honestly, I'll tell you what probably the biggest thing, right? The biggest thing that you need to prepare for is access. Chances are your cloud infrastructure was put into place not with security in mind. And so the access that you may have to those devices, those accesses that you may have to the infrastructure with which to do your engagement may not necessarily exist. And so understanding how you get access to those environments, understanding how you get access to do whatever it is you need to do, whether it's forensics or incident response or threat hunting or pen testing or vulnerability management, right? Whatever the case is, access is going to be key, especially during an incident response engagement. I've seen far too many incident response engagements take way too long simply because the IR team did not have access to the cloud infrastructure. And so I'd say that's kind of like key point number one. Regardless of cloud, and again, I talk about this because I think that like there's a lot of very fundamental. So Callie, I see what you're saying, right? But again, I'm still talking fundamentals, right? When we talk fundamentals at the cloud level, you still need a you still need an architectural design diagram, right? Where are all the assets? And that's not fundamentally different between on-prem or cloud, right? You still need to have an architectural design. You still need to have an asset inventory. And that doesn't matter whether you're cloud or on-prem, right? You still need to have an application inventory, right? Now, arguably an application inventory in the cloud is probably arguably different than an application inventory that you may have, for stuff that's on-prem, right? And so I think that there's still a whole heck of a lot that you need to take into consideration that is all still very basic, fundamental types of things that would make any engagement, IR, forensics, threat hunting, pen testing, vulnerability assessment, whatever the case is, far more successful by just having fundamental best practices put into place. Happy to go into depth on that. I do try to stay a little, you can see that like I'm pretty, I don't like it when people make distinctions in environments fundamentally, because I don't fundamentally think that it's as big of a deal as people make it out to be. Good questions coming through. Let's hit a couple of these. I want to talk about this one. This one was one that was dropped at the beginning of the stream before I had Richa on, and I did say I wanted to come back and address it. And so I do want to kind of come back and address it now, which is how long should you stay employed with a company? This is the one that caused like a lot of cynical answers in chat, and quite frankly, there's a lot to that. I am a builder. And I'm just going to talk from Neil's perspective, right, for a second. When you look at my career, when you look at the things that I've done with my career, right, like I've gone to consulting where I've been able to advise, help build new programs and new functions. When I came out of the military, I was building a new red teaming for a financial institute. When I left there, I went to go work for an MSSP where I was building a multi-million-dollar ARR pen testing practice for them. Build. If you look across my career, I've spent a lot of my times building. So why did I leave the places that I left? Well, I left Abbott, quite frankly, because after 3 years, we had built a lot. We had done a lot of that initial transformation, a lot of that build, and things had kind of started to plateau or stagnate just in terms of like my day-to-day activity, right? I wasn't doing as much innovative stuff. I wasn't being challenged as much. I wasn't, it had become very mundane with the politics, right? It was posturing here, posturing there. It was, how do I get this thing done? How do I get that thing done? It had become dull in that sense, in the sense that like I wasn't being challenged fundamentally. Same with Mondelez. Like my charge at Mondelez was, hey, I want you to do the exact same thing you did at Abbott, but I need you to do it in a short amount of time with a smaller amount of budget. And really, I only need you to do it for like a year or two, and then we could be done with this. And so like it was a finite transformation project that said, here's a start, here's an end. How do we get to be successful? And so we got to the end of that, and we got to a point where, again, I wasn't challenged. I wasn't fundamentally, innovating in that space at all, because it had just gotten to be very, very mundane, right? And that's one of the reasons why I love startups, because I can tell you that every day is a new challenge. Every day there is something new to work on. There is some new thing we're trying to solve for, some new customer. I wish I'd asked Richa this. Maybe we can have her back on to talk about what it's like to be a startup founder, right? Or to work in a startup. But you think you have a solution to a problem today. You go and you build it and you present it to a customer, and then they turn it on its head. And it challenges your entire way of thinking about how to solve problems and how to solve challenges. And now you're back to the drawing board in terms of how to solve that challenge and how to, kind of meet those customer demands. And so there's a constant challenge in working with a startup. And that's probably why like working in a startup has been very, very good for me, is because I can continue to be challenged just by the sheer nature that it is of working for a startup. And so the way that I answer this question is that for me, I have come to know who I am as a person and what I like to work on and what I like to do, right? And so because of all those things, I know that for me, the time to leave, right, is when I no longer feel like I'm being challenged, right? When I no longer feel like I'm innovating, when I feel like I'm no longer, when I'm the Maytag repairman. For me, that's the important kind of key point for me on when I choose to leave. Now, there's lots of other things to keep in mind, right, in this question, right? If you're, I've had one CEO that I've worked for that was ridiculously toxic, right? And quite frankly, I probably, if I tell this story, then you'll know who it is that I'm talking about, and I can't really do that. They were just incredibly toxic. And so I made a mental health decision for myself to leave kind of ahead of that, right? Because it was a mental health decision for myself. And so you kind of have to assess what's important to you, assess what values you like in an organization when you work for them. Because again, you're working for them, you're giving them, listen, make sure you're framing this appropriately with yourself. Everybody have a retro or introspective moment about yourself. You're giving your energy to a company. Absolutely. You have to wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, have some breakfast. You're going to fuel your body. And then you're going to take that fuel and you're going to sit on Zoom calls all day. You're going to work on tickets. I know we've got some SOC analysts here who work on tickets, right, on a day in and day out basis. You're going to threat hunt. You're going to pen test. You're going to talk to senior leaders, right? You're going to work on GRC stuff. You're going to spend your energy over the course of the day. Right? And so if you're going to spend your energy over the course of the day, you should at some point in time sit down and say, what's important to you? What do you want to get out of this relationship with this employer? For me, what I want to get out of the relationship with my employer is I want to continue to be challenged. I want to have a fulfilling work environment. I want to feel like I'm making a difference in the world, not, feed the homeless making a difference. But like if I'm going to be part of a startup that's building a program or building a tool that security is going to use, I want to make sure it's a tool that I would use myself. I want to make sure that it's actually going to fundamentally change the way I would have done my job if I was buying the tool that I was selling, right? And so you kind of have to make that self-assessment to yourself. Yeah. I mean, you've essentially got to like make that self-assessment yourself. Says, this is what I want the company to provide for me to be happy. And then when that relationship stops to exist, when they're no longer providing for you and you're no longer providing with them, it's an excellent opportunity for you to reevaluate that relationship. And there was a great follow-on question from Cyberties on this one, which I think is 1000% valuable, right? And that question really is how does that point of view come into play with the state of the market? This is why I'm a huge advocate day in and day out of you paying attention to the state of the market, the state of the economy, not just locally, but globally, right? Paying attention to the state of that economy is going to be huge. So you're informed with intelligence. Hey, we got a raid coming in over on YouTube from our Simply Cyber folks. Happy Friday to our Simply Cyber team coming in from over there. I apologize that you all didn't get a chance to this morning, but we had Richa Kaul from compliance on this morning talking GRC. There is an hour's worth of great, yes, Jerry, I had some GRC conversations going on, including some third-party risk. You would be so happy. I actually found somebody who could convince me to maybe slightly, only small portion, actually believe in third-party risk, but you got to go watch the VOD and the replay to kind of go see it. So the state of the market is incredibly important. And so like, this is why I encourage you that you've got to build your own intelligence apparatus, if you will, where you stay informed. This is why I'm a huge advocate for paying attention to social media, having some regular feeds that kind of help you see what's happening in the state of the world so that you can make those informed decisions about, are your needs getting met? Are you still being challenged? Oh yeah. And then by the way, the market's in a good place or the market's not in a good place for you to go and do what it is that you need to do. So lots of good questions there. I absolutely think that that's absolutely a valid way to put it, but it's a very individual decision. It's a very individual decision. Important question: is Air Force a good career kickstart for cybersecurity? Seriously considering this to get top level XP? Yes and no. Yes and no. Like. And again, having Air Force roots, I thoroughly enjoyed my cybersecurity experience in the Air Force. But you have to understand that, like, you don't just like walk into the recruiter's office and be like, hey, I want to do cybersecurity. And they're like, cool, let me see what I can do for you, right? The recruiter's job is not to make sure that you get the job you want. Let me say that unequivocally. An Air Force recruiter's job is actually very counter to helping you get the job that you want to get, without a doubt. Make sure you understand, you hear that unequivocally, right? An Air Force recruiter's job is to fill a quota in all of the AFSCs. All the AFSCs, right? So AFSCs, MOS, like for Air Force, it's Air Force Specialty Code, and MOS, I forget exactly what it stands for. Somebody can Google it, but that's basically your job code. Right? Exactly. Callie said it, right? That's your job code, right? And so they're given, like, you know, the recruiter here in Raleigh, right? He's given a piece of paper and it says, we need this quarter 15 security forces, 75 logistics folks, 40 of this, 5 of this, 4 of this, blah, 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 all the way down the list. And so, yes, when you come in to a recruiter's office and you say, cool, guys, I want to be a hacker for the Air Force, they're going to be like, that's awesome. I love that excitement. What else excites you? Like, what are you excited about by getting in the Air Force? And then they talk you into looking at the sheet and going like, well, let's test you, or let's look at your ASVAB scores. Be like, oh, I hear you on the cybersecurity and the hacking stuff, but man, you've got some skills here in this area. You could really go do security forces. Let me tell you how cool security forces is. And they're basically trying to sell you on being in security forces. And eventually they're going to try to get you into security forces. And when they get you into security forces, that's because they filled their quota. They don't care what you want. Make sure you know that before you walk into a recruiter's office. Right? And so when you walk into the recruiter's office, yeah, sure, if you get into cybersecurity in the Air Force, it would be a great stepping stone. It's huge. There's lots to learn, lots to do, lots of things like that. But you are absolutely, unequivocally not guaranteed to get that job. I want you to understand that walking in the door. As a matter of fact, the chances of you getting that job is incredibly low. The secret score. So here, I mean, we could talk about clearances. Like that's a completely other like trap, right? So there's definitely some secret saucy type of stuff that happens with the clearance type of stuff, right? You will not have a clearance when you walk in the door, right? And they know this, like they know that when you walk in the door, you're not gonna have a security clearance. And so they're looking at you and trying to figure out like, okay, how long is it gonna take us to get this guy a security clearance and what are they gonna do, right? So you're gonna be in basic training for 8 to 12 weeks. I forget what it is these days, right? Like you're gonna be basic training for a number of weeks, and then you're gonna go to tech school. And trust me when I say that the tech school for logistics is like 4 weeks, and the tech school for like cybersecurity is like 12 weeks, right? And so like there's a vast difference for how long you're gonna be in that tech school. And all this time, like they're putting you through this schooling, they're putting you through this basic training, your clearance is actually attempting to go through. On average, On average, it takes 5 years to get a secret clearance. 5 years for a secret. To do 100% of the offensive cybersecurity work, you need a TS, top secret security clearance, with SCI, which is sensitive compartmentalization information. And if you're going to do true offensive operations, you need a lifestyle poly. It will take you, even with an expedited process, it will take you close to 10 years to get all of that. It is a disastrous process, right? And heaven help you if you go in to the military and you're older than 18, right? So I went in when I was 24. So if you're 18, check this out. If you're 18, your security clearance starts at the time you're 18. Recruiters love that about 18-year-olds because they're like, sweet, we do not have to go back any further to when they turned 18. That makes the security process a lot easier. But if you're like me and you go in, and this is good, this counts for if you're taking a government job, if a civilian service job, whatever the case is, a contractor job, whatever the case is. I was 24, which meant they had to go all the way back to, when I was 18, 6 years. 6 years of my life, having never spent any time in the military, I had no clue the lobotomy that I was going to be under to have to get my security clearance. And remember, I'd been in startups. Like, I'd worked for fast-paced companies. So, like, I didn't have contact information. LinkedIn wasn't a thing back in those days. God, that makes me sound really, really old, right? Right? So, like, trying to find who knew me when I turned 18, who knew me when I lived at this random apartment that I lived in for 6 months when I moved out of the house and away from my parents, who could vouch that I lived in that apartment, right? The startup company that I first started to work for had gone under. So how do I get in touch with the people who ran that startup company? Where even were those people who ran that startup company, right? Who are the people that knew me on a personal level, right? As I left school and went to go work in the professional world, right? Like, all of this stuff, right, that you had to know to put onto a security clearance form, an SF-86, and then you had to put that stuff on a form, and then they have to go check that. I kid you not, if you put that your mom's uncle's cousin knew you when you lived at this apartment from May to June, they will go talk to that mom's uncle's cousin. And they will knock on their door, and they will ask them some of the most personal information that you could ever think of in your entire life. So, what do you know about Neil? Has Neil ever taken money from you? Did he ever pay you back? Do you view Neil to be a trustworthy individual? Do you think Neil would overthrow the government? Right? Those are the types of things that they ask these people. And some of you are like, oh, I'm totally going to rat out Bobby when he comes to me and they ask me those questions. I'm going to be like, no, you wouldn't believe this shit we did when we were kids. Right? They take that stuff seriously. That stuff's not a joke for them. And they write that stuff in a file, and then they're coming back to you, and then they're talking to you about it. Yep. They are having that conversation with you, and they're going to be like, so, I talked to your friend Bobby. He said that you and him went out to the cow pasture one night, started tipping over cows, and then extorted the farmer for $10,000. Is that true? Did you do that? And they're going to talk to you about it, and they're going to try to assess whether you're a liar or not. And all that stuff, that's what feeds into your security clearance. And we haven't even got to a polygraph yet. We have not even got to a polygraph yet. There are two types of polygraphs. There's a lifestyle poly and there's a counterintelligence poly. The counterintelligence poly is pretty easy. The counterintelligence counterintelligence polygraph is really, are you going to overthrow the United States of America? Do you hate the government? Are you going to overthrow the United States of America? Unless you've been crazy on social media, typically most people can pass, that poly. The lifestyle poly makes you feel so dirty, you want to go take a shower afterwards. It is a lifestyle poly for a reason. And they're not looking, like, and this is the other part, like, they're not looking to embarrass you. What they're doing is they're looking to see if there's anything that can be used by a foreign adversary to extort you into giving them government secrets. That's what they're looking for. And so they want to know your secrets before an adversary knows your secrets. And so you're going to be expected to tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. You're going to be expected to. And so, yes, all this is not to say you should never go into the military. But you know me, I want to make sure that you're informed about what's going on when you go and you take that step. And yes, it is 1000% legal to do, right? Because they are the U.S. government and they have to protect national security, and they have set forth, as Richa just said, policies to manage their risk. In their mind, the risk is espionage. The risk is that somebody could come and say, I'll give you $10 million and sanctuary for the rest of your life if you'll get on a plane with a thumb drive full of NSA secrets and fly to our country. Sound familiar? Right? It is absolutely legal. And good, like this is, I'm glad. Good information. Thank you. I still want to go serve in the Air Force, but still do cybersecurity. Please do. Absolutely. My goal is not to shy you away from it. But again, walk into it eyes wide open and get ready to bend over and spread it. Because you're going to, like, they're going to run it through you. They are going to run it through you. Good one, just since we're on the same topic of security clearances and whatnot. I just saw that message come through. Where was it? There it is. During the security clearance, do they read candidates' phone messages and listen to calls? No, not typically. That requires a warrant to do that. That's still part of the legal process. And so no, they won't read it, but they'll interview people. And what they're looking for is they're looking to catch you in a lie. Right? They're looking to catch you in a lie, and that's the big thing. Good questions. Yeah, keep those coming. Happy to talk about this process all day long, right? When I did it at 24, did I know what I was going to encounter? Hell no. I had no clue. I had no clue. Nobody in my family had ever, I mean, the last person in my family to be in the military was my dad's dad, and he flew P-51 Mustangs in World War II. Actually got shot down. He spent some time in a German concentration camp before before they were liberated, and he came back from overseas back to America. And he died long before I had ever made the decision to join the Air Force. And so I had nobody in my family that I could ask. As a matter of fact, my dad and my mom were very anti-military. They were very anti, government, if you wanted to say it that way, in some sense. And so when I actually told them that, I'd gotten laid off from 3 startups. The startup grind pre-military really burned me out on startups. Like, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work for Query, and I love the passion and the excitement of working for a startup. But it was definitely a little bit PTSD pre-military, and even some of my risk decisions when I came out of the military to go work for big enterprises was because I didn't feel ready to dive my toe back into the startup space. Because I was laid off at 3 startups. I went through the first .com boom in the 2000s before I went in, and it traumatized me. Like I was very, very close to homeless. I was, renting rooms in people's houses, for like $200 a month to live, just short of like living in my car, because I was, living off of unemployment and credit cards and stuff like that. And so no, when I went in, I knew nobody. I knew nobody I could talk to. I didn't know anybody in the military that I could even consult with. I didn't even know how to go about talking to anybody who'd been in the military to know what I was walking into. And so, no, I literally was the person who walked into the recruiter's office and was like, I need a job. And little known fact, so again, I talk frequently about like the universe corrects itself pretty well, right? I went in and I was like, I need a job. Now, keep in mind, I had a 2-page resume at the time. It was all cybersecurity, what existed as cybersecurity in the 2000s, a lot of IT stuff and things like that. And so like I walked in, I was like, I need an IT job. And the reason I could tell this story is because that's exactly what the recruiter did to me. The recruiter was like, I got you, don't worry about it. And then he was like, well, how soon do you want to get into the military? And I was like, I need to leave on the next boat out, because like that's how desperate I was. And he was like, well, I can get you into security forces. And I was like, sweet, I'll go be a cop for the Air Force. I don't mind whatsoever. And it wasn't until the last minute that I was in the recruiter's office. He says, you wouldn't believe what just happened. A slot opened up for the Air Force's equivalent at the time of IT administration, network administration, things like that in the military. Do you want that slot? And I was like, yes, please send me that slot. And so I managed to get in on that slot literally as I'd gone through the entire pre-enlistment process where they medically examine you, determine you're fit for service and things like that. And I was sitting down before signing my papers and basically getting sworn in that I was going to go to the military. That's when I got lucky enough to get the slot that I got into that set my career up. And so no, I had nobody that I could talk to about this, which is why I share the story so frequently, is because I want you to understand, like, hey, like there's a lot to this process. A lot to the process. Upgrading Jeff on YouTube says some recruiters will straight up lie and say, sure, here's the MOS you want, and then get to MEPS, which is the Military Entrance Processing Station, I think, or basic, and that job is not what you thought it would be. Yeah, and they've also done like where there's a clause at the bottom of it that says, hey, you're signing up for this if it's available. However, when you get here, the military, the Army, the Air Force, whatever, reserves the right to change it based on demands and needs, which is very similar to the clause you sign in the private industry, which is like, hey, your job title is CISO, but there's this little block down at the bottom that says, or task otherwise assigned by leadership, right? Like, this is the same thing, right? And so, like, there's always that clause that says like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, I know you're signing up for X, but we're gonna like, probably put you over here into Y if you, decide that that's what you want. So Frazier, good to see you. Thanks for the sub. Been subbed for 30 months. Hard to believe that it's been almost 3 years, brother. Good to see you. Hope the family's doing well. Super excited for your progress. You've done a lot of really, really great things. Keep those questions coming about the military. Happy to continue to answer those. I know that is a viable option for a lot of people. Let's make that expressly clear, right? There is definitely a viable option for people to join the military and be successful in cybersecurity. Just make sure you know what it is that you're walking into. Prince Paradox over on Twitch says, is the CISSP worth getting? Only you can determine worth. It sounds like, if everybody remembers the Smokey the Bear, only you can prevent forest fires. Is it worth it to get? I don't know. I know it sounds weird to say, right? Is there good information in it? Like, I can't help you decide if it's worth it. Do I think it's worth it? Hell no. If you're asking Neil's personal opinion, is the CISSP worth it? The answer is hell no. Not in a million years. Right? Is there value to it is probably the better question. Right? It can provide you some nice value on a resume. There's lots to learn in CISSP. And it helps you understand that there could be 4 right answers, but of those 4 right answers, one is more right than the other. Think about that for a second. Because it's very, very much what cybersecurity is like. It depends. There could be 4 right answers, but one is more right than the other. And so that's a very good test to take, right? Is the test to see if you can decide which of the 4 answers is the most right in the equation. There isn't a best one. There is not a best one. Listen, and I'll die on this sword. I'll absolutely die on this sword. I'll die on this hill. I'll totally hamburger hill this one. I'll charge up this hill all day long. I don't care. There is not, quote me on this, there is not a best cert. Period. Dot. End of discussion. Right? Back in my day, when there were only 4 training providers, sure, I could give you an answer because there was a 25% chance of it being right. Right? It was either EC Council, CompTIA, SANS, or offensive security. Right? That's what existed back in the day. Now you can go on YouTube and you can learn the exact same thing for free on YouTube. So what you're paying for is some random schmo on the internet to put their name on a piece of paper that says, yep, you watched some videos, you answered some questions. Good job. That's right. And Hack the Box has certs now. Do you know why Hack the Box has certs? Because it's super easy to write certs. It's super easy to just issue certs out. You get I need a Jens, this goes good on a clip, right? You get a cert. You get a cert. Give me an Oprah meme. You get a cert. You get a cert. Everybody gets a cert. All right? Like, that's how easy it is to make certs these days. If you've got a teachable platform, you can make a cert for your course that you sold for $19.99 on Teachable. That's why there is no best. If your answer, and I want to say this for the elitist in chat who are keeping quiet. If your answer is, well, they help you get through HR, you're not asking for what cert is the best. You're asking for how do you play to win the employment game. Think about it. Any of my gamers out there hate play to win games because you play and you get the most powerful stuff out there? You're no different if you're chasing certs to get past HR. You're playing to win. If you want to play to win. Like, I mean, come on. I mean, that's why there's a business for microtransactions inside a gaming industry, right? Because it works. People who are not skilled enough to actually do the game will pay to win. There, I said it. There, I said it. Right? I'll never answer that question. There's never best one. When I was at INE, I never said that INE certs were the best. Go back and look at all my content. I never said INE certs were the best. It's not a position that's ever changed. I hated getting the certs that I got. I'm glad that I got them, but I got them because they were given to me by the Air Force. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have had a chance to go through them. The baby is focused on this soapbox. Right? It's tough, right? And listen, I empathize with a lot of you. A lot of you want jobs. A lot of you want the key to success. A lot of you want to believe that there's a magic formula. There isn't a magic formula. Right? You didn't come here, hopefully, to have me tell you that OSCP is the best and you should all run out and get OSCP. This is why I don't take money. This is why I don't take money from education vendors. If you look over the history of this stream, the only time I've ever promoted education vendors were ones that I myself personally went through and issued the content, but I've never, ever, ever used the word best. Right? The certs And the education is not the magic ticket that you think it is. I know that that's weird for some people. I get it. I understand it. Question over on LinkedIn, because I want to make sure LinkedIn gets some love over there as well. Happy to see all my LinkedIn folks. Iris over on LinkedIn says, what branch would you recommend going into if you want to enter into cybersecurity? Thanks for the question, Iris, on LinkedIn. Either the Air Force or the Navy. Yes, the Navy. Little known secret, when we were building the first functional training unit for the Air Force, we stole most of our stuff from the Navy down in Pensacola. Not going to lie. They were doing it first. The Navy was doing offensive cyber-ish because they had a stronger, intelligence function than we had in the Air Force at the time, arguably. And they were doing much, much more cyber stuff than we were doing at the Air Force at the time. So we stole most of our stuff from the Navy. So I attest it is either going to be Navy or Air Force that probably has the majority of the good cyber stuff if you're looking to get in. Yes, either Air Force or Navy. That's right. There's a preach from a fellow grunt in chat. Where's Jack? We didn't write it in crayon. Hopefully he's not eating them. Thank you very much for your service as an Army vet. I appreciate it. Another military question here. Many people talk about top secret and secret clearance levels. Are there lower levels? Can you talk about those at all? Do they take the same amount of time? Are they easier to get? I think there was at the time somebody who maybe newer, keep me honest on this, but I think confidential and public office or public service, I think are the two lower level. Are the two lower level certs? Yeah, public trust. It's public trust or public trust. I think it is public trust. Thank you. There's confidential and public trust. I think are the two lowest levels. And so if you're working like municipal government, state level government, things like that, you probably have a confidential or public trust type of clearance. I think that's the lowest level one that's there. Security clearances are super, super weird. Fried Callie says, what should I know about cybersecurity as a product manager? I love this. I deal with a lot of product managers, obviously, at Query. We've got brilliant product managers. I'll give a huge shout out to Mike Bousquet, Brian Way, and Jonathan Rao. Excellent product managers. If they're watching, I heart you guys, and I absolutely love working with you. You guys are some of the smartest people I've worked with in this industry. And obviously I've consulted with a lot of folks from the security vendor side. I do product management consulting with a lot of them, as well, and just kind of give them feedback. I mean, one of the relationships that I have with compliance is to kind of advise them and their products in terms of like what I'm seeing and how I would use it out there, right? And so I talk to a lot of product managers. I say that to say, I think my perspective is, there is frequently too much focus on features and not enough focus on solving actual problems, right? And I think we see this in marketing. I think we see this in how the message gets out there. There's a drive, I think, this is my personal opinion. I think there's a drive sometimes to get people hyped and excited for features. But features don't always solve a problem. But if you set out to solve a problem, you'll build the great features along the way, right? And you'll probably be more innovative in solutioning those features if you're solving a problem. And so I always try to encourage the cybersecurity folks that I talk to who are in that project management stuff. If you've never done the job, spend time with the people who have done the job. It doesn't hurt you. Interview them, sit down and over the shoulder with them, talk to them, right? Spend time with them as close as you can get to, picking up the keyboard and working on the keyboard with them, right? Get as close to that as humanly possible Because I think that's what makes you successful in the problem-solving area. I can't stress that enough, right? Most cybersecurity products fail because they rely too much on these cool features that somebody thought up in a think tank, because you allowed one person to build your product based on what they wanted instead of what the customer demands, right? All of these things exist as problems for us on the ground because you just didn't come to us and talk to us. And I'm not saying my opinion's right. And there's definitely a law of statistical analysis where you've got to talk to so many people before you can be like, okay, this seems to be a trend. And I get that. I understand that. My encouragement to you is to do more of that and to make it an efficient process so that you can get to the root cause of what the problem is that you're trying to solve so that you can be successful. But huge shout out to our product team. I'm design partner number one. I'm customer number one for Query. And I spend so much time with our product team. It feels very much like I'm lobotomized, and I love every minute of it. Call me a glutton for punishment, but they spend an inordinate amount of time prying the same knowledge that I give to you guys for free. You know, when I come in here and stream, they pry it out of my head on what feels like a daily basis sometimes to try and understand the problem. So absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Good question. Good question indeed. Man, that was good. That was good. I think that's probably good for this morning. We've talked a lot. We've got a good audience, man. We've got one of the best audiences we've seen in a while across all the platforms. You know, it's looking like across all the platforms, we're coming up on 150 viewers. I want to thank all of y'all for coming and hanging out with me on this Friday. Thank everybody. Real quick, hit !AI if you're in chat on Twitch, and we'll get one of the mods to copy that over onto LinkedIn and to YouTube. We had Jax on yesterday, and Jax did a master class on AI for those who are AI aficionados, right? Absolutely fantastic course, or fantastic discussion on AI. She made available to us all of her AI research that she did for a class that she built for ACI Institute. So all the research that she went through to build a class, she made available for you all. And I just posted the link across all three of the platforms so that you guys can go and enjoy all that content for free. All right. Make sure you go tune into yesterday's stream with her as well so you can see that. With that being said, Carmen is definitely out on a business trip again next week, which means I get to hang out with you a ton. The two are not mutually exclusive. I just use that as an excuse to say that, to, you know, remind you. So I'll be hanging out with you guys again next week. We'll probably do some streams Monday night. We'll probably also do a game night next week as well. Feel free to come in, chat with us as well. Yes, I'm wearing my blue Ferrari shirt. Yes, I'm wearing my blue Ferrari shirt. With that being said, whether you're on the red side, listen, everybody have a fantastic weekend. Have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for tuning in to me this week. We will see you next week. I miss and I love all of you. You all make this stream so much fun. You make this community awesome. Hop into Discord. I'm pretty sure Maz is going to organize a Friday night jam session, hanging out with everybody tonight in Discord. You can oftentimes catch me there, giving out free security advice. Good time to get one-on-one. Make sure you hop into the Discord as well. And stay awesome. Stay awesome. And I'll see y'all next week. Whether you're on the red side or the blue side, keep learning. And we'll see you next week.
Turn it up. When I come through the spot, turn it up. When I whip drop top, turn it up. Whole squad when I roll through, what we gon' do? Turn it up, turn it up. Put the stars in the roof, turn it up. In my city, I'm the truth, turn it up. Whole squad when I roll through, what we gon' do? Turn it up. I was gone for a minute, I was country hopping, Paris to the